Today I'll be styling this Juniper Procumbens Nana. Hey everyone, it's Clive here. Welcome back to the channel. So I'm going to be styling this Juniper Procumbens Nana. This is by far one of my favorite trees because you can manipulate the branches quite easily. The foliage has already compacted quite nicely. And if you can see, I've let this grow for a while to thicken up the base and so on. But now it's ready to be styled into a small little bonsai. So I'm just going to start by swinging the tree around, just so you can kind of see what we have to offer. And the first thing I always like to start with is basically going inside right at the base of the tree. And we're going to start cleaning up anything growing right on that trunk line, so we can start to see what the tree has to offer. So like I've said in my previous videos, it's almost like unwrapping a Christmas present or a birthday present. You don't know what's inside until you start cleaning up the tree. Awesome. So like I said, I'm going to start cleaning up anything growing that's blocking the trunk line. So I'm going to come in over here and I'm just going to start cleaning up this stuff growing right at the base of the tree. And there's so much foliage on this tree, so we really don't need to worry too much about taking anything growing right at the base. And because it's quite a small, short tree, we really don't want anything growing right at the base of the tree. We're going to rather use the foliage growing right at the top. So if I swing it around again, you can see how we can start to see that nice trunk in the tree. So that's ideal for what we want to start doing. And then later, like I say, we're going to use probably some of the top foliage to get the design of the tree. So the reason this tree has thickened up so nicely is because I've allowed it just to grow quite wild. So you really sometimes just need to leave your trees for a bit, let them thicken up, and then you can start styling them. Cool, so you can see the nice trunk line. Now what I'm going to start doing is just cleaning up a few of the branches just to kind of see a little bit more into the tree. So this tree is quite a problem child. There's quite a few things we can do with it, but it's also not the easiest of trees, from the beginning. I can see there's quite a few problems already. But this is the beautiful thing about bonsai. It's all about problem solving and, finding a solution, while you style the tree. So I'm just going to start by cleaning up any of these small little buds growing, in the triangles of the tree and so on. I'm also, while I do this, I'm looking for anything that's died off in the tree or not looking too strong and happy. You can see how the colors of some of the bits of foliage that have grown right in the interior bits of the tree aren't looking that healthy. So I'm just going to trim those off. And I just want to clean up anything growing right in the interior bits of the tree. So another reason I love working on these trees is they have such a nice scent. So when you prune them, it really has this beautiful, beautiful smell. So obviously the juniper berries are used to make gin. So it almost smells a bit like that nice gin smell. And I just love taking it all in. So like smelling the beautiful foliage when I cut it. So I have another video where I go into a little bit more detail with styling a Juniper Procumbens Nana. So I will put that in the description for you guys. But for today, I also just kind of want to enjoy the process, and you can just watch me work on this tree. There's also something so satisfying about seeing a before and after, photo or a video of someone who styled a very overgrown little shrub into a bonsai. It's really nice to see how other people do things and how their minds work, because we're all different at the end of the day. Everyone has different aesthetics and have seen different things in life, so we all aren't the same. So at the end of the day, this tree that you style might look completely different to what I would do, and I think that's the beautiful thing about any art form. Looking for these small little buds inside the tree that I'm just removing, because we want to use the main branches. We want to kind of find the bone structure of the tree today. So if the small little buds are like really small and they haven't formed into a branch yet, remember you can just pluck them. You just literally pluck them off like that, which is sometimes easier. But you can see when it's like a main branch, almost like this, then I like to snip it off so I don't tear the branch or the trunk at all. So you can see I'm trimming off anything bigger. Please feel free to go grab one of your trees while I do this video, and we can sit together and do bonsai together. And I'm always open to you sending me comments, and I'll happily respond to anything that you are unsure of, because we can all learn together. Now while I clean up the tree, I can start to see a little bit better inside and see what it has to offer. I can also notice a few things that I want to already remove, but let me just continue pruning the tree a bit more, and then we can move to stage 2 on the video. I think this tree is still going to have quite a bit of time to develop. It doesn't have an immediate design I can see in the tree. So we're going to just start to get that design, and then we're going to have to develop it a bit more. I don't know where you guys are all from, but like I've said, I'm from South Africa, and we're currently, waiting for spring to come. So I think all of us South Africans are just so over the cold, and we just want spring to come so we can start repotting our trees and so on. But in the meantime, I hope you guys are getting your soil mixes ready, and you cleaning all your pots, and taking off that moss on all the trees and so on. It's a really nice time, an important time to do those sort of things before spring comes and then we like, oh no, we haven't even mixed our soils yet. And I don't know if you guys use akadama and pumice, but if you use that, it's sieving the akadama and pumice, and this all takes a lot of time, so it's nice to just get on top of all those things. Cool, so I'm not going to clean up too much more at the moment. I'm definitely going to clean up a lot more later on, but for now I kind of just want to start removing a few of the main branches. So let me show you a little closer look of what's happening inside the tree. So I don't know if you can see this, but there's quite an ugly branch that's growing completely downwards, and then we have this main branch above it. So you can see how it's growing, it's starting to grow in towards each other. There's not much space going on here. So I kind of want to free up that space over there. So I'm going to remove the one growing downwards and keep this main branch over here. So you guys will have a closer look just now, but that's kind of what I'm going to do right now. Cool, so I've got my big branch cutter and I'm going to trim this branch off. I'm just going to leave a little bit of a stump just in case we want to create some dead wood later on, and we don't want the branch to die off right and kill off these main branches. So I'm just going to come and trim it off, leaving a bit of a stump just like that. And you can see it's quite a big branch. You can see it's really quite a big branch, but it hasn't made a huge difference to the tree. You can see how there's this nice main branch over here, so it's actually created a lot more space over here. So I could bring this down, I could sweep this up. There's so many different options I could choose. So now you can see there's another branch growing directly downwards. We're not going to need this branch because I want to start using some of the finer branches, and then later you'll see exactly what I'm going to be doing. So I'm also going to chop this one off, leaving a bit of a stump over there. You can see. And I think for now, that's all I'm going to remove now. I think I may remove a bit more later. But yeah, let's get rid of the main branches we don't need. Amazing. So now what I want to start doing is, finding the initial design. So what I'm thinking of doing is actually angling the tree up this way. So when I repot it, it'll be faced up this way. And then I'm thinking of swooping this one as the main leader. So I'm going to put a bit of wire on here, but before I do that, I've got some wood over here that I'm just going to place under the tree, just like this, kind of just to get that angle. And obviously when we repot the tree, we can angle it even better. But for now, I'm just going to start angling it nicely like that. I want to use my branch cutters over there just to hold it in place. But what I want to do is put a bit of wire on this branch so I can get a bit of movement and let this branch grow upwards and be the new leader. So I've got some 5mm gauge wire over here. So this is anodized aluminium wire. It's the best type of wire you can use. You can also use copper wire, which will work perfectly well, but sometimes that's a little bit harder to get around the tree. But for this, using some nice thick wire will work just fine. So I'm just going to measure how much wire I need. I'm going to basically place the wire on this branch and this one over here. So I'm going to use the 2-branch technique just to place that wire on the tree. So I'm kind of measuring how much I need. I'm going to cut it. Cool, so now I'm going to come around. So for now, I'm just going to actually just move this wood out the way, and then I can place it back up, just so it doesn't give me a problem. And I'm going to come from behind. I'm kind of doing this backwards for you. And then I'm going to come and go over this branch over here. Make sure you start off really tight, making sure that wire is very tight around the branch, and now it's anchored to this branch. So now I can just go up this one, so I don't have to worry about holding the wire. And I'm going to keep going, missing all these small little delicate bits of foliage. And now I can come up the other section. Awesome. Now I'm just going to cut off this excess wire just to neaten it up. Boom. Cool. So now I'm going to start by bending this in place. So remember, if your wire isn't thick enough, it's not going to bend the way you want it to bend. So let's say you don't have thick enough wire. You can also use 2 bits of smaller, thinner wire, and then you can kind of wrap them and follow the exact same pattern, so they can almost act as a thicker piece of wire. But you know, it's always best to try and get some nice thick bits of wire, so when you do bend it up, it holds it in place. So you can see I'm going to bend this tree up because I want this to be the main leader. And then I'm going to try swoop this over something like this. And like I say, this tree's still going to, it's still got a long way to go. So we might end up changing the design. But, at least while we do this, I'm kind of giving it some nice movement. So I'm just going to put my wood back under the tree just to kind of see, the direction I want to go. So you can see like this can be a really nice second branch or bottom branch. This can be the nice bottom branch over here. And then we have a nice back branch over here. So I'm just going to kind of just put this in place to where I think it should go. And this is why I love these trees, is because you can manipulate them really easily without worrying too much. So now already I can see that I could maybe use this as the new leader and cut this back. But I don't think I'm going to do too much today. I'm going to kind of leave a bit more foliage than I intend, because then later on I can do another video on this tree when it starts back budding again. Cool, so that's starting to look a lot nicer. You can see it's starting to swing up a bit. And over here, now I want to start giving a bit of movement to this branch over here. Cool, just for now I'm going to leave it like that. And now I can just start cleaning up a little bit more of the tree, because obviously, now we've wired these branches, a whole lot has changed on the tree. Alrighty, so the first thing I'm going to start removing is these branches growing directly upwards, because they're going to start interfering with that main center line. So I'm going to trim them right off, just like that. And if I swing the tree around over here, you can see there's another one that's growing directly upwards, and we won't need that because we've got this nice branch over here. And then I'm just going to swing the tree around just to see if I can notice any more. Now I'm just going to start trimming anything that's growing upwards. I showed you a few examples, so you can see that there's some that are growing up over here. So I'm just going to trim these off. Just like that. And then again, anything growing directly under, I'm going to trim off. So now you can also take a closer look at that stump that I left over there. You can see that's the big branch I chopped off. So I could potentially clean that up, which I think I probably will do now, because we can see it's not going to be a really nice branch to be used as like a gin or anything like that. It's far too small. and I think it's just going to take away from the design of the tree. So I think I'm actually just going to start by removing that, because I'm not going to need it. I'm just going to trim a little bit more off, just like that, and then later on I can clean that up once that little stump has died off. So I'm just going to clean that up for now, and then same with the other branch we cut off. I'm going to come in and I'm going to trim that off. Perfect. Cool. So now that I've cleaned the tree up a little bit more, I can start to see, how I can bend this a bit more. So I'm just going to give it a bit more movement. I'm really going to get something quite drastic to this tree. And now as I bend it, I can already see how I want the tree to go. You can see I can swoop it down like this. So like I always say, it's always good to know the guidelines, but like any artistic form, we sometimes want to break those guidelines. So, at the end of the day, it's your tree, you've spent the money on the tree, so you might as well do what you want on the tree. And there's always going to be people who are going to critique you, but that's life. The whole purpose of bonsai sometimes is just enjoying it and, doing the things you love. Cool, so I'm going to trim this longer branch over here, you can see over there, and I'm going to rather keep this finer branch over there. So when it grows out, we're going to rather use the finer branch over there. And now I'm going to trim a bit more of this wire back, because it's quite a thick piece on that fine foliage, just so that it has a bit more room to grow. And I'm not going to do too much more pruning on this small branch. I'm going to let the energy be sent there, and then we can kind of clean it up as we go later on. Cool, so now you can see this branch is directly growing downwards in that nice triangle shape. Let me show you a little bit of a closer view of that. So you can see this is the branch I was talking about, growing directly downwards. It's in that nice curve over there. So we only really want things to grow on the outside of the curve. So I'm going to trim that off, just like that, boom. And then this branch here is going to get a lot stronger, and it's going to kind of fill in that negative gap over there. Cool, so I must say the main problem I found on this tree is, it didn't have a leader. So it was really hard to kind of find flow to the tree. Everything was kind of growing downwards, which is very typical on your Juniper Procumbens Nanas, because they're actually ground covers. But we always want to find some sort of leader so that it looks more like a tree, because trees always generally want to grow upwards, and then their branches want to grow downwards. So now all I want to really do is now just start finding any more branches that I feel like should go. So you can see in this section, it's quite bushy over here. There's some branches growing downwards again. So I'm just going to continue to clean up the tree, and then we'll take it to the next step. Trees can look quite ugly sometimes your first time you style it, but all the photos you see online and so on, a lot of those trees have been developed for quite a few years. So we got to get through this ugly stage, and then once we pass that ugly stage, we can kind of start styling it in step number 2. And also with your junipers, I don't like to do too much at once to them. We've done quite a bit. So I think I'm going to almost let this thing settle. We've got kind of a rough idea of where the tree should go now. We might be able to put a bit of wire over here and so on. But then just let the tree settle. And, don't rush everything at once. These trees like you to take their time on them, so don't rush it. Do one thing at a time. This is also why I always say to people, rather have a few trees you can work on because, sometimes people give too much love to the tree, and that's kind of why they end up dying. But in my opinion, I think the tree is looking a lot better than what it was looking like. We've done quite a lot of work to it. I'm just going to take out some of these weeds. And then in springtime, I'm going to put this into another training pot just to allow it to settle. It definitely needs a new repot. So you can see, this has been grown in quite muddy soil. So now I want to put it into some akadama and pumice and then just let the roots go wild so we can start developing some finer branches on the tree. And remember, you should always repot your trees. So don't forget, even when they're in development, it's always a good idea to repot them so they can continue to thrive. Cool, so once I've removed some of these weeds, then I'm going to start wiring some of the smaller branches. Quite a big weed. And remember, all those weeds are going to, steal the nutrients in the plant. So we want to get rid of them. It's okay to let them grow for a little bit, but eventually you do want to get rid of them before they get too strong. Alrighty, so let me quickly go get some more wire for the finer, smaller branches. I'll see you all now. Alrighty, so I've got my thinner wire over here. So I'm going to first start by wiring this branch over here because I just want to get that bone structure to the tree. So I just want to add a bit of wire to this tree. And then we're going to develop it, and then we're going to add more wire later on. So I'm definitely going to do a part 2 of this video. There's still a long way to go with this tree. And remember to always try wire right to the tip of the branches so you have more control when you bend the branches in place. Cool, so I'm just going to swing this tree around so I can kind of see it from the front. Makes life a bit easier. And I'm just giving that movement to the branch, letting it swoop down a bit. Remembering that conical triangle shape we always talk about. Find so much peace in doing this. I really feel like life feels so much more overwhelming when I don't spend time with my trees. So I try to do this most mornings, and then my day just seems to go a lot nicer. So I'm actually going to just cut this thicker wire over here because it's got quite a bit of pressure on the smaller branch when we put the thicker wire on. And now I'll show you what I'm going to do. I can now use these two branches to use a slightly thinner piece of wire just to give it a slightly better bend. So sometimes taking something off isn't a bad idea. We do it all the time, and you know, sometimes you wire something and you're not quite happy, you know, you can just start again. Cool, so now I'm just going to give this branch a touch more movement. Cool, but yeah, I mean, there's still so much we could do to this tree. But like I say, I think we've done a really nice job on the tree. I think it's starting to, you know, get some shape to it. Now I wanted to start back budding and so on. And then we can kind of do part 2 on the video. And then in spring, I'll show you how I repot this tree and, you know, give it a little bit more wiring to all the small little bits of foliage. Just before I forget, I'm going to trim these ones that are growing down because now I've moved them out of place. But yeah, I think this has turned out into quite a beautiful little tree. So like I say, when I repot it in springtime, I'm going to angle it nicely like that. I may change the angle, but that's kind of, we can make that decision, you know, in springtime and depending on what pot I use. But I'm probably going to put it into a terracotta pot just to train it for a few more years and then put it into some really nice akadama and pumice. Before I forget, you know, we've taken some big branches off the tree. So now these can be used to grow new junipers with. So we can take these and grow them, we can grow them from cuttings. So this branch over here could probably make about 3 to 4 new junipers. So I really hope you guys found value in this video. Please don't feel shy to just drop me a comment if there's anything else you would like to know. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, give me a follow on Instagram, and have a beautiful day.